Um, it's a question whether we are victims to this or whether we are responsible for this. On one hand, it comes from outside. We are subject to a transhumanistic invasion of our planet. But it wouldn't change a thing if we would not be so lazy in feeling. Because this is something you can learn from the early scripts. If you go back and if you look into the tradition of the church, you have the 7 deathly sins. If you go back in history, you see that this roots from different traditions, Egyptian. And in the Egyptian tradition that was prior to the church sins, you have 8 of them, and they're not sins, but they are demons. And they very, very precisely describe what happens to humanity when being exposed to this demonic agenda that is projected by the Black Goo. Basically, we need to fill in one thing. The Black Goo, like the planetary Black Goo, is projecting the animal souls to live in the biosphere as a holographic projection. The alien Black Goo is projecting non-incarnated, let's call it souls or beings, that have basically the job to infiltrate and take over humanity. And this is what in the traditional scripts is described as archons and demons, 2 different types. And the archons are kind of the ones who have their own brain and orchestrate things, and the demons are basically half-conscious beings that jump into the human biology whenever we leave a space empty. And we leave a space empty when we are too lazy to feel what is there to feel.
And that welcomes
and this is what
that welcomes them in.
This is exactly what welcomes them in, and this is what the 8 Egyptian deathly sins are about. They're describing 8 different types of demons that enter our system when we are too lazy to master ourselves. So if you're too lazy to master your basic chakra, the first one down there, the demon of greed takes over control of you, and you get greedy and start to live a destructive life. If you don't master your sexuality, then the demon of lust takes over control and starts to turn your behavior into something painful and destructive for others. If you don't master your stomach area chakra, then the demon of anger takes over and manipulates you in a way that you start with wars and violence, hurting others. Then it's getting a bit more difficult because you start dealing with the heart. In the heart, it is basically the demon of laziness. The little voice that tells you not to take care of yourself in a loving way, that tells you that it doesn't matter, that you do not need to work on yourself. So if you get lazy in the heart, this is kind of the demon of phlegma, let's call it that way. And only then, if you mastered your own heart, it goes up to the mental field. And the last 2 ones are arrogance and I don't know the English terms. Like the wish to be famous and to be the biggest character on the planet and to shine as
so like
the
vanity
character on the planet. Yeah. And if you don't master that one, even if you mastered all your lower chakras, everything turns again against you and the creation and turns into evil. So this is basically what is described in the Egyptian tradition. And now let me be, for the sake and in the name of the American people, let us be honest. Let us have a look at the American society and just have a look at the question, where do you stand? And if you look at the daily life in the United States, it's about guns and violence, it's about porn and sexuality. It's about how many, I think 800,000 children disappearing every year into the black magic torture industry. Yes, so it's about child abuse, ritual child abuse. And if you look, this is basically on the basis of the people. Yeah, where they stand emotionally with their own lives. This is what is happening in the classrooms. This is what's happening in the families. This is happening in the hidden when you're alone with your computers.
Well, if I may,
now
if I may, Harold, I want to inject just right here, because what you're saying goes along with my introduction tonight when I was talking about virtual reality that was being promoted by Samsung during the Super Bowl. And instead of virtual reality being used to maybe take us into an alternative state of consciousness in a way, maybe during a surgery or maybe we're having a bad day, if you will, they promoted and marketed it as step out of this reality and step into a virtual reality that was actually a war zone. So you'd go into a war zone in virtual reality. So just creating a subculture, a sub-reality on top of the reality that's an illusion that we already live in.
Yes. So this is the aspect of violence. So basically, now if you, this is what was with the people. Now look into politics. You just had choice between Donald Trump, that basically is mob, taking America to war. So this is the combination of greed and violence. And the second candidate you had was Hillary Clinton, that is coming from the black magic tradition, that is into child abuse and molesting. So this is basically the combination of war, because she was going to war as well, and a completely loss of control over the sexual chakra, trying to refeed yourself with life force by abusing children, and going into the black magic universe. So basically the two combination of 1-3 and 2-3, the lowest chakras completely out of control. And this is what you get as a choice when you go to vote.
So the abuse of children, I've covered this subject for a long time, Harold. I've actually been removed from certain networks for my coverage of it. When we talk about absolute love versus absolute fear, for example, it seems like a child, the epitome of innocence, the epitome of love and unconditional love. Do you think that this system as a whole, on many levels, through that fear and hatred and malice, directly targets children because they are purely loved?
Yes. They are the strongest energy source of all. It's all about energy. This artificial system, the transhumanistic, the demonic realm, has no source. It is not connected to the divine source of energy. It is not connected to the divine endless source of love. So they need to steal energy from somewhere to survive. So the black magic realm itself is feeding on humanity. And the humans that are subject to, let's say, the quality of this realm, try to feed from each other. And if you're completely emptied of life force, the only source that will keep you alive is abusing children. So they do this for survival. This is no excuse. This is just a fact.
Harold,
and it's not necessary.
I agree, it's not necessary. Let me pause you for a moment. We have Brad still on the line, Brad Olson. He's a good friend of mine and an author of the Esoteric Book Series. Brad, do you have anything else for Harold? I know you have to go pretty soon.
Yeah, Harold, just back on the Morgellons topic and the life force of it all, to continue with what you were saying. When Ryan was here, we did the red wine test at my apartment here in San Francisco, and we both emitted this type of substance I'm wondering if you ever tried it, and if that really is Morgellons. And then just back to what you're saying about when the Morgellons came in, Middle Ages or sooner, back to the Ark of the Covenant, much sooner. Was this the same Morgellon substance that was written about in the Middle Ages when the name was coined? Has it been around that long, or is this merely a modern phenomenon from chemtrails or transhumanism that is being introduced to the human race?
As far as I can 100% secure data, I could route it back to the 60s to Project Paperclip scientists in the United States. I suspect that they were around in the Second World War Germany as well, in the SS research, but I didn't find any hints or proof to that. And about the earlier mentioning of the name and the disease, we do not have medical data that can be read in a way that I can say, yes, this is it. We have descriptions that resemble it, but I am not sure. Basically, the technological background to create them is available within the human society since maybe the 60s, 70s, with the emerging genetic science. So I wouldn't go further back. The interesting thing is that if you look at what Morgellons do, basically they are artificial fungi with the ability to carry a secondary genetic cluster. And these secondary genetic clusters create etheric beings we know as demons from the traditional mythology. I hope this is as precise as you can express it. If you have a Morgellon infection, these Morgellons will make fruiting bodies in your lower intestines, and every fruiting body will basically grow in the morphogenesis of a crossbreed of human and spider. And this human-spider crossbreed basically is formed as an etheric being, first living in the fruiting body, and at a certain point he will just pull a little bit of energy out of your forehead and detach from the fruiting body and jump onto your body, which is called the aspect of the delusional parasitosis. You know, the feeling of having insects crawling all over your body. This is what NASA calls co-opted insects, as far as I know. It's part of the transhumanistic concept, but it also is known from earlier sources as the demons humanity has to deal with, especially this human spider crossbreed that basically is the god of Freemasonry.
So these are spider-type creatures. Is that a metaphor, an analogy, or you mean literally like a spider-type creature inside the body?
It is etheric.
So no physical body. It's like an energy representation.
No physical body. The physical body is formed by the fruiting body, and then it detaches in a similar way that the human soul detaches when the human dies, and it is still around as a ghost for a while. And then our type of biology basically is diving through a transdimensional process, going into 4D to be able to be reincarnated. But this artificial biology, the creatures created by it, they are not able to reincarnate. So they stay on the 3D plane or in a parallel space-time sheet to our 3D plane until they die, and then they are completely mortal. Nothing is left from them after dying. But they have genetics of ants inside, which is giving them this hive consciousness that enables them to be part of the AI, the artificial intelligence, controlling the entire alien field.
Harold.
It's a bit complicated because yes.
Oh no. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's complicated because it has so many components that appear to be something different. But if you once you understood the black magic realm, you realize that these are all components of one and the same agenda. So you have the black goo basically projecting the demons, so they have their consciousness mirror in the alien black goo. You have the crystals in the Arks of the Covenant feeding in bioenergy to basically traumatize the earth field, to open it for the influence. And you have the transhumanistic technologies of today to multiply demons, to have enough of them for the complete takeover of humanity. So basically at the moment they're growing spider demons with the Morgellon victims, and they are growing snake demons with the help of the rope worms in autistic children. This is a very similar concept. They don't use the Morgellon fungus. They use a slime fungus, but also with a secondary genetic cluster. And what these clusters create are snake or worm demons, very much of the type that we know as Kundalini snake from the traditional